It's 4 o'clock on a Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for another exciting special edition of Taxi TV Live. This week, starring special guest star Mr. Robert Meddy. Yeah, baby. Thank you, fake band. Thank you, fake audience. I'm glad the stream is finally coming through.
Good. How you doing, Mike?
Welcome, Bob. We're starting again. That's what we get for weird. Ever since we upgraded, we're having tech problems. Of course. Of course. How's the audio? No delay on the audio today. C. Hurwitz, commonly known as Churowitz. I see him in there. Carrie Cox, Ann House, Janine Larkin, Horace, Vicky Flowith, Adriana Lisette. Do you know Adriana now lives like 5 minutes from here?
No.
Yeah, she and her husband and her daughter moved out here. They live in the same town that my family and I live in.
Nice.
If they didn't kick us out there, sure, not going to kick them out.
There we go.
So anyway, Bob is well known amongst our most veteran taxi members. Can you please make it cooler in here? It got warm again. As a consummate jazz guy. I mean, he's more than that, but he is probably best known as an incredible jazz pianist. And so I've got some questions written out. So how long have you been making music?
Making music?
Yeah.
I wrote my first song in third grade.
Really? So that was like almost 12 or 13 years ago.
Easily, 12 decades ago.
Wow. You actually wrote something that resembled a song?
Yeah, with words, too. I didn't realize it, but it was in the key of B major. Then it was all the black notes. And it was about 2 phrases, but that was my first inkling. Yeah.
And you would have been 8 years old.
Yeah, 8 or 9 years old, yeah. That's when I started piano.
I wrote a song called Sally Lynn, You Win when I was 12 or 13, but 8, man, you got me beat. And my song sucked. Anyway, so what happened after that? I mean, obviously you didn't jump right into doing stuff for film and TV, which has been pretty darn successful, and we'll get to that in a minute.
I always use the joke that growing up, I would tell my dad, who was a phenomenal jazz musician, I mean, top shelf. And I used to say, I started writing a lot of piano stuff, and I said, I really, back then, in 14, 15, I really want to write for movies and stuff. And he said, well, you'd have to go to Hollywood. We lived in Connecticut. Yeah. Because you have to go to Hollywood. And he said, the walk would do you good.
Thanks, Dad.
Ka-ching, where's your ka-ching thing?
Yeah. I'm sure I've got one.
There we are. So, and it was funny because, all through high school I had bands, and we'd play for the high school events, and I started gigging in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
Democratic little party, and we'd pass the hat around, county fairs, the whole bit, My first band name was the Cherry Vodka Quartet.
How old were you when you... Because I had a band at that time, and I want to compare names with you in a moment. But how old were you at that time?
Let's see. I was about 14, 15.
Okay, so
Dad would have to drive us to the gigs. Yeah, absolutely.
When I was 13, 14, 15, I was in the Benjamin Franklin Lightning Rod Society, and my parents drove me to the gigs.
The most embarrassing name was I had a band called the Melodics. Now you spell that out, Melodics, right?
Yeah.
And we were we were always the house band for the modern dance at the high school presentation. While they were doing scene changes, we'd play, and then they'd go and they'd give us 2 spots. And on the announcements, the night of the thing, the lady comes on and says, "Oh yes, and come to the ticket buy tickets for the dance tonight, and music will be provided by Bob Meddy and the Melodics." I wanted to change high schools, So, yeah.
That's awesome. I'm not even going to comment on that.
It is a family show.
Yeah, there is one gentleman that watches with his sons that are like 2, 4, and 7. And about 2 weeks ago, Bria gave me some music to play on the show, and one of the songs had the MF word in it, and we didn't catch it before the show.
Oh, boy.
He was like, "Can you guys try and watch the profanity on the show?" We try. But you never know when somebody's going to show up with a band called the Melodics.
Yeah. So then I just went into I was going to be a piano major.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember, so I started studying with Cicchetti, and prepping to be a classical pianist, which I was never. And matter of fact, I drove him to smoke again. He claims I'm the reason he started smoking again, because I was syncopating Bach and Beethoven.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I had to have that jazz feel, and it just wasn't working. And so my father sat me down and he said, look, he says, I know you want to do music for a career. He says, but it's a rough life. He says, you're going to have to gig all the time. You're going to be out late. You're going to have to teach. You're going to have to do this to make a living. He says, why don't you consider going into business major and be a marketing guy? Because marketing in the 70s was just really happening.
Right.
And he goes, you'll really like it. And I thought about it. And in his wise words, he said, you'll always have your music. If you want to gig, you can gig, but you don't have to gig. If you want to teach, you can teach, but you don't have to teach.
Very smart man.
Yeah, sage words. And I went into marketing. Right after college, I opened up an ad agency.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, I had an ad agency for a number of years. We did a lot of jingle work. Gee, surprising. Did a lot of radio.
You and Sherry Milano and Marcus probably pitched some of the same clients back in the day.
And it was a lot of fun. And then the family business was lighting. And
Sherry Milano. I never get her name right. Sherry Milano Marcus, or is it Marcus Milano? Yeah, there we go. Sorry, Sherry.
So I went through college, did all that, and went back into lighting for a number of years, which I'm still attached to. And it wasn't until, had a family. And Ryan was a musician, my son.
Yeah,
and
still is.
Yeah, still is. We're partners in the business. And I had a high school buddy who was a phenomenal classical guitarist, and he and I were like soulmates. He'd go home and write half a song, I'd write a half a song, and where his song ended, my song would be on the same, I'd start on the same chord, unknowingly.
Right.
And we just wrote music. We went into a studio and we did 4 tunes or something, and then we went our way different ways. And
so basically, you're married to music, and your wife is only in your life to supply you with horse manure. Yes. I only say he has 21 horses on your property. 19 horses on their property, which is a lot of horses.
Yeah.
One horse is a lot of horses. Yeah. I only know that because my in-laws have had horses.
But the business major this weekend sold 2 tractor loads of compost that's been aging for years to the community garden up the road.
Nice.
So hey,
somebody's got to do
I did up a flyer, recycled oats.
At what point did you know that you wanted to pursue? I mean, you are still a business guy, and you're in the air like 3-4 days a week, right? You fly.
I've already flown 40 segments this quarter already. Yeah.
Okay, so and you do sales training. That's what you're.
I do product training, for Brooks Equipment. Yeah.
Okay.
For exit signs, emergency lights, fire safety, life safety.
Really?
Yeah. My background's in exit sign and emergency light manufacturing, distribution, all that. So.
That's funny. There was a guy that was just here an hour ago, and he was doing like laser measurements of all the rooms because they just upgraded all the fire stuff, and so he's mapping it all out now.
They're probably one of our customers. We are dominant in the industry.
I sold him a taxi membership for his nephew while he was here. The guy asked too many questions. Like, well, you can buy a membership. Anyway,
it came serious right before taxi. My son and I. We got a hold of my buddy Dana and said, look, let's put out a CD. The 3 of us have a father-son project, and we'll bring Dana in. And so we took a week, and we just wrote all week. It was great.
Did you already have a studio in your house?
No.
Okay.
No. Matter of fact, Ryan sold me, he was working at a music store at the time, he sold me a 16-track Korg. The old Korg with the dial there. Yeah. And that was our thing. So we did that for a demo, just to record and listen to it. Then we went up to Baltimore into a studio, and we spent 2 nights, and we cut 4 songs. And about that time, I started seeing in the magazines Taxi.
Right.
And I started thinking about it, and of course my first rally, and then I said to the guys, I said, I'm going to join this. It was on my birthday. It was my birthday present to myself.
Wow.
And I said, I joined Taxi, and they have this road rally thing, and I'm going to go out. I mean, see what it's about. And I was never so discouraged in my life.
Really? Because you thought the bar was too high, or
No,
what was discouraging?
I had my little CD with 4 songs on it.
Okay.
There's Matt Hurd up on stage, and his catalog had at that time 5,000 registration.
Might be a bit of an exaggeration, but yeah.
And I'm like, I remember, and then listening to all this, and then I was watching your YouTubes, and there was an interview with Matt, and you were talking about the V word. Don't be versatile. You got to
remember that. I just told that story yesterday to you and Laura.
And then, we're learning, because, I came and said, well, they're going to hear this great soprano sax and this great, guitar and drum and bass and these nice 3-4 songs, and, record deal is going to be, eminent, that kind of thing. And,
any minute now.
And then I think the joke back then was labels weren't signing, or they were signing in vitro at that time.
Right.
Because,
that was my joke.
That was your joke,
The only funny thing I've ever said my entire life.
And, I remember...
In utero.
In utero, that's what
right.
it was. And I remember sitting in this thing, I remember saying to myself, what the hell am I doing here? And I said, but, give it a shot. Let's learn. You're here, enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And so I started picking up on different stuff, and I started meeting some really super people. Met Chuck and John Mazet, Maz, and all these people.
What a great group of people.
Oh, yeah.
And it
was
they're like the godfathers of
well,
our members.
I knew them from the forum.
Oh, okay.
Because I was heavy on the forum, and
Yeah.
that's where I was picking up a lot of stuff. And so I said, it's pretty comfortable. I can probably do this another year. And then I think it was the next year, you opened up the rally, and this is where it really all clicked.
Yeah.
And you played a simple little piano tune, and then you played a simple little guitar riff. Not you playing, but you had it played. And you said, how many of you can do that? And all these hands went up, and I said, well, I could do that. And if you can do that, you could write for TV and film.
Wow.
And I remember that just went, that was like a laser right into my brain. And I said, oh yeah, this is the path.
I can't believe I did that like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's when, for me, it clicked that, the path is not a label. I'm not going to get signed. There's too many far better musicians out there than me that would take those places. But TV and film, boy, yeah, that can work for me. And that's when, the focus really came down to writing for that application and looking at the listings on, and that's where I started concentrating.
So, being an accomplished jazz pianist and a composer, have you found that you've been luckier? I don't want to say luckier. More. Have you had more placements with stuff that showed what a brilliant composer you are, or the stuff that was simpler?
Simpler.
Really?
Simpler. And I think that's one of the things a lot of the jazz musicians get hung up on is, they want to show off that they can do Charlie Parker's licks and that they can do Coltrane or Oscar Peterson. And for TV film, it's just too busy. The stuff that the music supervisors through my libraries are loving is the stuff that's sweet and simple.
Yeah.
A lot of solo piano stuff that's very minimalistic. And a great placement was for Hemlock Grove on Netflix.
Right.
And it's one of my solo piano pieces that's very minimalist. It's called Butterfly Kisses.
Oh, I remember that one.
And
sure.
it's very soft and very sweet. And the scene is one of the characters is in a room, black and white, and he's looking at a projection of him as a kid. And it's like a time, going back in time, looking at a memory here. And the music is just nice and very, very just floating there. And it really brings the scene out nice.
So it's interesting that you say that, because so many of our members get frustrated, new members, people that are in their first year and they don't renew for a second year, because they think that it's all about somebody in TV land is going to recognize what a brilliant friggin' composer I am, and they're just going to lavish all this work on me. And I hate to see them beat themselves up and work so hard on a piece of music. When I hear this time and time again, where it's all about the simplest stuff that captures an emotion or sets a mood is the stuff that gets used.
Yeah.
Do you have certain pieces in your catalog. Well, it's in other people, in publishers' catalogs now, but certain pieces that you've written that are repeat offenders that get licensed over and over again.
Absolutely.
And those tend to be the simplest
Some
as well?
in the same series.
Really?
Yeah, I had 4 placements in Nashville when Nashville was on ABC.
Yeah.
And one of the songs, in fact, 2 of the songs got double placements, episodes apart. And, the publisher just wrote, the supervisor just loves the song. I was like, yes.
Do you know one of the supervisors for Nashville used to sit on the other side of that wall right there
Really?
for about a year? Yeah, I won't say her name on the show, but she was working for somebody else, and I had an empty office, and that other somebody else lived in Calabasas. And I said, you know what, as long as the office is empty, why don't you guys just use it? And that young lady was like a starter position for her, and you could tell she was destined for great things, because she was just nose to the grindstone, never looking at her iPhone, just working. She lasted about 9 months. She got a job working for the supervisor of Nashville and many other things, and now is kind of getting equal billing with that main supervisor.
Nice.
So proud of her and proud of you for getting that. So, I mean, when you get something picked up a couple of times, that's a big deal. It doesn't happen that often.
And that's just Nashville. That song, it was in a couple movies.
Yeah.
And it's been in other series of TVs, and it's just I have 4 jazz trio. One we'll hear hopefully later, and they just get picked up all the time because it's not too busy. There is a little ad-libbing in there, but it's very delicate, and it's just subtle. And the more subtle it is, and the guys that I have playing with me, 2 of the tracks I have session guys with me.
Yeah.
And then the bass and the drum and everything's all MIDI.
Do you record all this stuff at home now?
Oh yeah, everything's home.
And
Everything's
what
home.
is your setup?
I have a Logic Pro on a Mac Pro, which is 10 years old.
Wow.
And I'm looking for the new trash can one now, and I have technical questions that I need to get answered.
They're coming out with a new version of the trash can.
Oh boy.
And also, about an hour ago, I was on the Apple website because I was testing something, and I figured I was testing our connectivity, and Apple's website is a good one to use that for. And they've got an iMac Pro now that starts at $4,500. Wow. So it looks like a typical iMac, but you can get up to an 18-core processor.
Wow.
That's a beast.
Yeah.
I would imagine that could handle pretty much anything. Yeah. That could probably do like virtual reality stuff, I would imagine.
Yep. So I have the Pro. I use East-West for my strings, the Gold. I have Ultimate Drummer or Addictive Drums, Easy Drummer, and that's really, I bought the Latin package and the jazz package and some of the others.
How long did it take you? You and I are the same age, give or take a few months, and I know many of our colleagues who are in our age category find it difficult to cross that chasm of going from, I had a 4-track on cassette, and that was hard enough, and now for me to learn Logic or learn Pro Tools is too hard. You're an old dude.
Yeah.
How did you learn it, Bob?
You have a son who's an IT brilliant. You just put people ask, what instruments do you play? I say, well, I play piano, I play all the saxes, and I play my DAW.
Yeah.
Because I treat it as an instrument. And, YouTube and other taxi members, how do you do this? How do you do that? It took me forever to finally figure out multi-timbral.
Right.
And because that saves so much CPU use when you're doing, I have 5 violins, 5 violas, and 5 cellos. Yeah. If I open up one for each of those tracks,
a lot of processing.
It doesn't, the thing just crashes and crashes. So, you just trial and error, learn
Get the iMac
YouTube.
Pro with an 18-core processor. You won't be crashing that.
Yeah. If it's breakable, I'll break it. So.
I think it's commendable and awesome that you learned that stuff, because that, to me, I did a panel a couple of years ago at the Road Rally about women breaking out of production prison.
CK was on it.
Yeah. And I hate it when a woman says to me, we've had instances where something was about to get licensed, but the showrunner or the music soup or somebody said, I love it, but I need a mix without a vocal in case we want to cut back and forth. And we would reach out to a female member, and they'd say, well, I've got to wait for my boyfriend to get home.
Oh, to do
And
it.
yeah, is it really only men can operate that stuff? No. And so I've always had this issue of like anything you want to do that requires using a computer, it doesn't matter what your gender is, doesn't matter what your age is. It's a matter of how much time you're willing to invest to learn it.
Yep.
And once you do, you're free. You put yourself in position to do anything you want to do. You no longer have to. The only thing you would need might be other musicians for instruments that you can't play or that you can't do with a keyboard.
Yep.
So I think that's cool. So how did you make the transition from, you and I were talking about this before we went live on the air. I gotta move this over so I can see my whole face. There's nothing I like better than looking at my whole face. There I is. Okay, anyway, making the transition from creating pretty music to knowing that there were structures involved. That sometimes it's a cue and that's got a structure. We're talking about instrumental, jazz being a genre that lends itself super well to full-length instrumentals. And tell them why jazz instrumentals versus jazz instrumental cues. Why jazz instrumentals are a good thing from a financial standpoint.
Oh, because when you get placed from the jazz standpoint, it's usually the entire scene. It's
like a restaurant scene, a romantic
my
dinner.
wife always kids. I said, "Hey, I got a placement." She goes, "What restaurant scene is this?" She goes, "You're the king of the restaurant scenes," and it's true. It's always a restaurant, usually a restaurant, or a romantic scene. That's another thing. And you get the whole scene. You just don't get 5 or 10 seconds or a 3 seconds needle drop. You get 1 to 3.5 minutes. My first big placement was on Californication.
I remember that show.
And it was over 3.5 minutes. And in BMI you get the super payment, you get that extra payment, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then of course you could hardly hear it.
Doesn't matter if the check cleared.
Well,
I guess it does matter.
Well, Ryan said to me, he goes, "Dad, you can hardly hear it." I said, "They don't pay us on volume. They pay us on length." So as long as it's a minute, 2, 3 minutes. But most of my cues that show up on the BMI statement are a minute and a half, 3.5 minutes. Yeah, it's usually the entire scene, and that's the beauty of writing jazz.
So for those of you who are new to Taxi or new to film and TV music, very often production music library cues, instrumental cues that are constructed differently than an instrumental. An instrumental is usually 2, 3.5 minutes long. It's a little bit more akin to a full song. It just doesn't have a vocal. Whereas a cue has short to no intro, goes right into an A section that's pretty similar to a chorus, but it starts out with a light complement of instruments, and then every 8 or 16 bars graduates with a few more or another instrument or two, then it graduates again, then it drops back to the core instrumentation, then builds back up, and then goes for an ending with a buttoned ending on the end. Whereas an instrumental might never have the addition or subtraction of other instrumentation. It's just like a song, but without a vocal.
Yeah, a lot of times it's, A, B, you do your verse, B, take a solo, A, out.
So because of that, cues lend themselves well to reality TV shows. And instrumentals lend themselves well to a husband and wife having a romantic dinner that's going to take 3 minutes of airtime, and there's ambient light cocktail jazz, as we love to call it, in the background.
Absolutely.
And you get a bigger, fatter check because your music is getting used for a longer period.
If your library is really good and gives you sync fees, you get a nicer sync fee up front, which in just about all of, let's say 85% of all of those that I have, all have up front sync fees, which is really sweet.
And I'm guessing that they're usually like in the $2,000 to $3,000, maybe $2,000 to $5,000 range.
It's been coming down. $1,500 to $2,000 is kind of there,
and then you split that with the library, or is that your half?
That's split with the library, yeah.
And how is the back end for? Let's say you have something that's 3 minutes and 4 seconds in the background of a romantic dinner scene on network television, prime time. What might you see on the back end through BMI, ASCAP, or CSAC on something like that?
A couple of them where I have 2 other writers. my portion was for that episode was $50-$60.
Yeah.
So times 3, so it'd be $150 for that.
Right.
On the back end for that episode.
I'm surprised it wasn't more on network TV. Oh, what was that on? Are you talking the Californication?
Californication.
But that was on cable.
Cable.
Okay, if that had been on like ABC, it would have been considerably more because it would be broadcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So when you first decided to go for film and music for film and TV, how much of an understanding did you have at that time as to how music was used, who the decision makers were, what caused them to use one piece of music over another? What did you know and what did you have to learn?
Well, being a marketing guy,
yeah,
before joining Taxi, because I saw your ads, and I said, well, being market research is my gig. I can start doing all this myself. And I was gonna go. Then I kind of said, wow. I got some subscriptions that gave me all the library names and all the music supervisors, and I was inputting them into my Outlook, and I was going to start sending stuff. That's the way.
I mean, it can be done that way if you've got 12 hours a day to do it.
Yeah, and then I realized how monumental this would be to do, and that I just didn't have that kind of time to make music and then market it at the same time. So that's when I started really reading the ads more, and I went on the forum.
Yeah, Taxi Forum.
Yeah, the forum,
which is at forums.taxi.com, forums with an S, and it's a great resource for those of you who aren't already on there using it.
And then, you start seeing the forwards and the success stories, and then, whoa, this is really real. Mm-hmm. And maybe I should, drop my plans to be self-marketed here and go with someone,
I'm shocked actually that you made that determination, because you're a responsible, driven guy.
Oh yeah,
you are anything but lazy. I've known you long enough and well enough.
Well,
to know
it comes down to time management.
Yeah,
there's only so many hours in the day, with a fierce travel schedule. With barn responsibilities, and then just life in its own, and
that was barn, not bar.
Yeah, bar. I wish it was bar, but no. It's just wow. Why reinvent the wheel if it's already been if the cake mix is already there. All I have to do is add the milk and stir it and let it go into the oven and bake. Yeah. And that's you. You're the baker. So,
wow, it's so funny. I'm so happy that you're saying this. The other, 2 weeks ago, there are two very credible people in the industry. One of whom used to teach at Berkeley, I believe, and another one who's written some well-received books. And they were offering up a course taught by a third party. They were marketing a course for this third party about getting your music into film and TV, and they actually referenced Taxi in several negative ways in their promotional materials. And the pitch they were making, which is a pitch that we put in our brochure 20-some years ago, which is, it is always better to do it yourself. But if Bob Meddy couldn't do it himself, that tells me something, because you're smart, you're driven, and you don't back down from a fight. A lot of people sit in
I'm a street fighter,
sit on the couch, doing bong hits or something and thinking about getting their music out there. You're a worker. You'll do it. And I'm shocked that you made the determination that it was smarter to go with us. Anyway. And I'm suing those guys.
Good.
It was clearly defamatory.
Take a few of the knives out of your back.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, some of the stuff they said about Taxi was clearly defamatory, and went out to, tens, 20, 30, 50, 100,000 people.
There's
and
no need for that.
It was false information. So we don't like bad people around here. Anyway, but I think that's commendable that you did the math, or calculus as they like to say, and you've determined that it was just smarter to concentrate on the music and not on all the busy work. Yeah,
and for it's funny, for once in my life, I don't worry about. Well, I do worry about the marketing, but I don't have to worry about marketing to the end side for the end run. I have people to do that. And
people.
Yeah, I love saying, I got a call from my publisher.
Right. Everybody loves that.
It's a great thing.
My publisher.
My publishers,
How many are you with? How many publishers have you signed with?
I have probably about 9 to 10 different publishers. Wow. 4, the 80-20 rule.
Right.
4 are really kicking it for me. Yeah. And then that's where they get the first first crack at everything, so to speak.
It's funny, the my publisher syndrome. I've identified that as a syndrome because the first time a relatively new taxi member gets that first email or phone call from somebody that says, I really like this piece of music, I'd like to put it in my catalog, what else do you have? Now I've got a publisher, it's my publisher. Yes. And then they just start lavishing everything they create on that person because they love me, they get me, they totally get me. But I think that's a fatal mistake. You do want to spread it around, and you're living proof because as you said, there's 4 of them that are your go-to people. And it really depends because it doesn't mean another company is less good. They're just less good at getting placements with your type of music.
That's right.
They may have great connections for getting heavy metal and sports television, but not great outlets for cocktail, jazz, and restaurant scenes.
That's right. And a lot of times when I talk to a new publisher, either from the rally or just, my own, now I generate my marketing gun to finding libraries and finding outlets for my music that they can take to the marketplace. And a lot of times I get this response, well, I don't have much cocktail jazz in my library, and I could probably use some. Yes, let me hear some of your stuff. And then they'll sign 5 or 10, 15 songs that to them, and sometimes they do something with it, sometimes they don't. It's not their forte,
right?
But they want to have it. They want to round out their product mix. And then I gain another publisher, another library. So.
There's always that chicken and the egg thing. It's like if they had it, maybe they could run with it. It's worth a try as long as it's non-exclusive and you're not tying up stuff. I would do, if I were a musician, I would do an exclusive deal all day long with a library that I knew could get my style of music placed. Okay, take it, lock it up because you're a good bet. But for a new relationship,
I have a couple exclusives. A couple libraries that I do some work with. And one's already made me some money, and others there's crickets. I have to go look at the reversion clause. After 10 years, you should be do something with it.
There's one library owner that we both know that I won't mention by name, but he's a very smart guy, a very hardworking individual, and the library does really well. And I've seen people online talking about, their bar is really high, they wouldn't sign me. And I know the musicians that are saying this to be very credible and very talented people. And when I've asked this owner about that situation, he says, look, it's not a matter of how high the bar is, although his bar is high. It's more a matter of, if I don't think I can find a home for that music, why would I take the time to do the paperwork, and why would I tie somebody's music up?
Exactly. And you appreciate a publisher who won't sign you because not that the music's not good or the song's not good, it's just they don't think they could place it. And I appreciate that. And you say, okay, well, I appreciate that I understand. And I'll just take my little wagon somewhere else.
Do you know that particular publisher actually called me up one day and said, would you mind connecting me with another publisher that I know that you know? Because I heard something really good today. I just don't think I can get a place, and I want this other guy to have it. That's a mensch.
That's top shelf.
Yeah. And he is. He is somebody who I think, he's the epitome of what a publisher should do.
Well, you asked how I did research for the music. One of the libraries that's very taxi friendly at one point used to put up a thing on their site that tracks they just signed, and every day I would listen to the tracks that they're signing, because if they're not signing stuff that's in my genre or just in my style, and I would listen to the quality of what they're signing, both the recording of it. I made a post some while back that said, I used to listen to songs for the music. Now I listen to how they're recorded. And it's just a total different world.
That's the way I watch TV. I mean, it's hard when I'm watching a show that I really love, like Homeland or Billions, where I'm totally sucked into the show. But my wife will tell you I'm annoying as hell when it comes down to, I'm constantly giving her an elbow going, background source music, and I'm teaching her this stuff, and she's She's learning it. She could care less, but now she's been working at taxi for a couple of years. She came on board to help us with the road rally and didn't leave. So I figure she might as well know about the music.
My
side.
wife is getting like that now.
Really?
And she's like, now your music would have been better in that show. Like, you want me to call him or something, you know?
Speaking of music, let's listen to something. What would
Sure.
you like to start with?
Let's start with the first one. Fernando's Friend. Interesting story on this.
Okay.
It's a trio piece. The drummer is actually a nanoscientist at UVA, and he gigs all over Charlottesville. Charlottesville is just a hotbed of unbelievable musicians from
That's
all
where you
over
live,
the world.
right?
Yeah, and it's
I never even heard of that place until I met you.
Yeah.
Now it's a hotbed.
I mean, guys, you know, the trumpet player I use, he heads up jazz studies at UVA. You know, he's recorded and written for Quincy Jones, Miles Davis.
Anybody famous?
Royce Campbell's in town. He was Henry Mancini's road guitarist for 18 years. I mean, the list goes on, and it's just a wealth of people. The bass player I use, one of the bass players I use, Bob Bowen, he did one of the Phil Wood's last records with him and Royce Campbell.
Wow.
And they're the most humblest guys, but
They're in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Oh, yeah. And they're... and I always had them as session guys. I'd pay them, you know, per session to come in and do my music. And at one point I said, hey, guys, I said, I'm going to throw this out to you. Either way is fine. I can pay you or I can make you writers. You want to be writers?
And they all said yes to that?
Oh, they jumped right on it. So right there I got on. I put them on BMI. I registered them with BMI. I said, here, we're going to go a lot to this one publisher. Set them up here, and I set them all up. And... so we said, well, let's get together. Okay. And it was Halloween night 4 years ago. They came up. We had no music. We just sat down. They said, okay, what are we going to do? And I said, okay, well, I think I want to do out 3 tunes. I want to do a real nice ballad. One of my inspirations is Vince Guaraldi. Mm-hmm. So I said, I want to do kind of a nice little...
If you're going to steal from the best.
Yes, absolutely. Highest compliment.
Yeah.
Vince Guaraldi. I want to do a little jump tune.
Yeah.
A little thing. And then maybe a blues funky thing. And no music. We just sat down. The bass player is just so phenomenal. He just watches and he kind of knows where I'm going because I'm all over the place. And I said, okay, E flat. Let's cut it. It was the third take. Boom.
And that's what we're going to hear?
No, the second tune
okay.
is let's do a jump tune. And it was just up. I said, I'm going to do this progression. You know, just follow me.
So is this one that we're going to hear already signed and placed?
I was in taxi. I joined, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
It took me like 4 or 5 years to get my first publishing deal. And then, years after that to get placed.
That's an important thing. I'm going to go 4 or 5 years. He hung in there until he got his first publishing.
Oh, yeah. And then these guys would up the music for me.
Yeah.
They were all signed immediately. And within 6 months, they were in 2 movies, 3 television shows. These guys, I said, they're my Lucky's Rabbit's feet.
Wow.
And
so you're talking about the players?
The players,
okay.
yeah.
Not
and these are guys who know nothing about TV and film, nothing about taxi, nothing about anything except music. And boom, and they come right out of the gate. They get their little royalty checks now. This is an up tune.
They think it's easy now.
Oh, yeah, they love it. Hey.
You must be like a guru in Charlottesville. You're like the center of all things music.
So, yeah, it's a nice little up tune.
And what's it called?
It's called Fernando's Friend. The way it got its name was I was telling them of another placement on Telemundo, Corazon Valiente. Excuse me if I said it wrong in Spanish. But there's the Music Soup must have loved this song. It has that trumpet player I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Really sweet. And he's used it in like 10 episodes. But this one episode, the lady, the main character, is at a bar. And I don't know what she's saying because it's in Spanish. But blah, 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 blah. Fernando, blah, 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 blah. Fernando, blah, 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 Fernando. And then the bartender brings over a phone. And it's Fernando. And hey, ¿qué pasa? And it switches to Fernando, who's in a boat on a dock. Yeah. And they say something, then the boat blows up.
Nice.
So we're laughing about it. So we decided to name this song Fernando's Friend.
Got it. Fernando left with a bang. All right.
A Dean. Throw me one too.
Totally smacks of being real.
Yeah.
Real guys playing real music.
That's what I would play if I was in a
Yeah.
lounge with a trio. Yeah.
Bob's playing along with his right hand on the table here. Go ahead, you can keep jamming.
And that change up in tempo you can use in many different scenes. You can use just that almost as a cue, just
Yeah.
sitting out there.
Is anybody engineering this live while you're doing it, or you set the levels and go?
Yeah, I set the levels. I'm playing on a Yamaha 505
Yeah.
that I turn off the volume. I put that into MIDI, into the Logic Steinway piano,
Yeah.
and I'm miking them live so they can hear me playing, and then I bring them in together. They're always trying to get me out to gig, and I'm like, I don't have time.
It sounds great. I mean, it's got the humanity, it's got the air, it's got the everybody's looking and feeling each other.
Yeah, and this has gotten a lot of placements. Besides Nashville, it was in the stores on. Oh, thank you. And it was in the stores at Whole Foods, and the list of songs that this goes into. The best one that it's in is Comedians in Cars with Jerry Seinfeld and
Yeah.
Robert Klein.
Yeah.
Because that intro, but that's how they start off the scene with the piano.
It is
And-
actually a really great riff.
Yeah.
The melody you can, and you just comped that. That was just like,
Yeah, we just sat down and said, okay, I'm going to be an F. Okay, yeah, about this tempo, let's go.
wow.
And we just did it. So, and that's.
Because it is.
It was a magical night.
That would be like great in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, yeah.
It's, yeah.
Yeah.
I can think of a million places.
That is also in Ray Donovan.
Yeah. Oh, man, love that show.
Oh, yeah, so do I. He lives in the movie. He lives in Calabasas.
Calabasas,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right. I always think of you.
I
when
see him all
right
the
down
time
there,
at
right down.
McDonald's.
He shoots over your house, yeah. It's in the scene Volchek where the guy comes in the restaurant and blows his brains out.
Yeah.
I always say, that's me playing in the background there.
Deb and I will be sitting at home, and sometimes I hear music and go, "That's a Taxi member." I don't know who it is,
Yep.
but I know that music, and it's the most incredible feeling. So, how does that feel for you, being the person who created it? I mean, that's
Wonderful.
got to be like.
It's interesting because
The best,
I've always considered myself a musician, but now I'm actually very comfortable, and I don't feel silly saying that. Well, I'm actually a composer.
Yeah.
And it's a transition from going from just being a musician. There's nothing wrong with being just a musician, but being a composer. And when people ask, "Well, yeah, I'm a composer."
Well, let's talk about that, because that's a word that scares the crap out of a lot of musicians. If you take, for instance, a country rock person who primarily plays acoustic guitar, and they say, "Oh, Taxi's done really, really well for members that are composers." And I think they have this mental image of somebody with a baton and somebody, singing
Writing a John Williams score.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
And it's this whole image where a composer, by the definition as we know it, is Basically a songwriter that's doing largely instrumental music and understands the venue of TV and film and knows the difference between a cinematic score or a reality show cue.
Yep.
These are things those are the types of things that you need to learn in order to be able to say that you're a composer. You don't need. Have you ever charted any of this stuff out?
Oh yeah,
you do.
I used to.
Really?
Well, see, in Logic, it does it all for it.
Okay, but you don't actually sit down with a piece of staff paper.
Oh, I have. Oh, yeah, I do.
Really?
Yeah. When I'm doing.
But then again, you teach and.
Yeah. If I'm recording a 5-part sax section.
Yeah. Wow, you actually.
I have to write, then I have to transpose it, and get it into all the right keys and get it lined up. Besides all the DAW work of making all that, and then mixing. I remember I had one co-writer who said, "Look, just send me the sax parts, and I'll put them together." And about a week later, he sent them back and said, "Put them together," because I can listen from a sax section view as how I want them all to blend, and I mix them in where they sit in the band in the section. And I mic them accordingly, and then I have to.
I'm so glad you said that.
I have to EQ them so it sounds like you're standing in front of the sax section, and the sax section sound is coming out.
I can't believe you understand this stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a frustrated conductor from.
But see, that's mind blowing to me. Back in the late 70s, I worked with a composer named Tom Hartman, and we did a bunch of PBS specials and commercials and all kinds of stuff together. And there were times, I remember one of the sessions was the night that we found out John Lennon had been killed. And sometimes it would be a room full, like 30 to 50 pieces. Other times he couldn't get everybody he wanted at the same time, and we would overdub an orchestra. Mm. And you had to think about that. Where would they be in the room relative to the other people in the room? And I would actually set up what I call dummy mics, but they were live, where if I were recording cellos, if I were doing cellos in reality in a live, with a full orchestra, I would also have mics on the violins and mics on the violas. Yep. And where would they be sitting, and how far would the mics be? How high would they be? Yep. There were times where we played stuff. I'm looking up at the ceiling because we had monitors in the studio room, which was 25 feet wide by 45 feet deep with 20-foot high ceilings. And we had some JBL monitors that were hanging from chains, that for playback to the room. And there were times where I would actually take stuff that we'd already recorded and play it back at like minus 20 dB so that it would bleed into the mics that we were doing overdubs on, because you wanted that air. I think Fed calls that
catching air or something.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. And I was going to comment about your piano. Sounds so good. Tell them again what your piano setup was.
It's a Yamaha 505.
So tell them what a 505 is.
It's an 88 key electric piano.
Yeah.
That has MIDI output.
Okay. So there's no strings, no hammers.
It's a weighted key. It is a weighted key.
But I mean, it doesn't generate sound on itself. It's electronic.
Oh no! I can play it. I can put it into an amplifier and
but without an amplifier, you can't put a microphone up. It's not a regular.
It has two little speakers on each side.
It's not like an upright piano or a grand in that it's got strings and stuff.
Oh no! Okay, that's right.
So that's what I'm going.
I'm thinking MIDI strings.
I was sitting here the whole time going, "Is that real? Or is it in a box?" Yeah. And I'm so impressed because it had the air that you would have in the room with the other players.
Yeah.
And that's something that we hear at Taxi a lot. People who are extremely good pianists will send in stuff that, from a compositional standpoint, from a structural standpoint, arrangement standpoint, everything about it is right. And there's just that little something that bothers the screener. And sometimes it makes it down to my office. I'll listen and go, I hear it. I think it's a lack of air. And we find out that it was, $500 worth of piano software, which is, reasonably expensive and good, a brand name, but it just doesn't sound right because there's no air. And I've advised people, play it out into a room and mic it and add that back. But you've explain how you did this again.
Well, I have the 505 MIDI into the Logic.
Okay.
And I'll bring it into I like Steinway. I'll bring it into their Steinway studio or Steinway hall, whatever.
Yeah.
And I shut off the piano so no sound is coming out of it. It's going straight MIDI.
Okay.
And I'll record that in there. And then from there, it's all, I like to, if I'm bringing it into the East-West Steinway, I'll adjust the delay. I'll adjust the reverb a little bit. I'll sometimes spread my stereo depending on the tune, to fill up more of the expanse. But then from there, it's I found an delay, reverb, and compression.
Yeah.
And I kind of just play with them until I get the where I want it.
And you've got a strong advantage in that you've played piano your whole life, so you know what a real piano would sound like sitting, 2 feet from the strings and the hammers.
Yep. Yeah.
So you're able to just not go for what you think is right, but go for what you know is right based on experience.
You know what I find sometimes amazing is, because I'll look in the East-West package, I'll go to the other strings just because, like, if it's a funky tune and it's going to be bright, I'll go to a Yamaha C7 because it's very bright and all that. And I always end up back at the Steinway for some reason. But sometimes, even with the East-West package, it's like it's just not doing it.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the Logic Steinway, and it just sounds fantastic for whatever way my voicings were or whatever, and I'll just leave it in Logic and not bring in the expensive software for it.
It's fine. A lot of times I'll see people on audio engineering forums like Gear Sluts or anything that's like that, and somebody says, look, I've got the ultimate setup for recording piano, and they describe it, and in my mind I'm thinking, okay, that could work, but vast amount of difference between the way which mics you'd use, which compressors, which EQ, which delay, which reverb, all that stuff, all bets are off. If it's classical, it's one setup.
Yeah.
If it's Elton John, it's another setup. If it's jazz, it's another setup. So you can't learn just one.
No.
You have to understand what it is you're going for. It's like probably analogous to, there is no such thing as perfect skin tone for painting that works in every.
Yes.
It's like our complexions are different, so you would need different brush technique, different blend of colors.
And it depends where you're playing on the tune too. If I'm doing a blues and it's really below down 2-3 octaves, I got to adjust my EQ so it's not getting boomy or it's not just getting flat. You got to keep it sharp, and you pull down the 500 in the range and bring up for the upper range at 2500.
Boy, you really learned your stuff. Good for you.
There's a funny story on that. When I said when Ryan and Dana and I got together to do our father-son project, and I bought my little Korg there, and I remember Dana said to me, he goes, "Oh, you're not going to become an engineer, are you?" And I said, "Hell no, that's a 4-letter word to me. I just want to be able to record my piano." Yeah, now I'm talking Hertz and
I'm impressed how much you know. Good for you, man. It's quite impressive.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm looking at the list of placements, and these are just some of his recent placements. The Fosters, Kevin Probably Saved the World, Public Storage Commercial, Comedians in Cars, Rosewood, which was HBO or Netflix?
Fox.
Oh, Fox, okay. Halt and Catch Fire, 4 episodes in Nashville, Silicon Valley, Stephen Colbert, 3 a.m., Looking, Ray Donovan, Californication, indie film, the indie film Scout.
Any Day was an indie film. And Adult Beginners,
also an indie film. Netflix, Hemlock Grove, seasons 1 and 3.
2 Hallmark movies, direct to the music supervisor.
Through Taxi.
Because I got this email and it was like, "Hey, can we use this tune for this for Hallmark?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then they kind of said, and he said in his email, he says, "I got this music, from a taxi listening." And I said, "Oh, really?" And and I went back and I'm going through my history of submissions of forwards and rejections, and I'm going through, and it had to be from maybe 3-4 years ago.
Yeah,
I think there was a crooner listing that went out, and that was like 4 or 5 years ago.
But everybody in the industry keeps files. He probably had a crooner file and just kept it there for a rainy day.
And then last November, I just got back from the rally.
Yeah,
and I got another email from him, and he says, "Hey, we have this Christmas Christmas special coming up. We'd like to use this song. And it was matter of fact, I think it's the next one on the list. It is the next one on the list if we play it.
Yeah.
It was a co-write with Dean Kripin.
Yo, Dean.
Oh, Dean's the man. And the first one was a co-write with Dave Walton.
Okay.
And it's interesting how a lot of, like I have about 17 co-writers.
Yeah.
13 of them are taxi members.
Wow. And did you meet most of them through the forum or at the road rally?
Both, the forum and the road rally. And like one of the tunes, if we get time, is with Casey.
Mm-hmm.
And Casey Hurwitz does pop and light rock and stuff. And he every so often sends me a tune and says, hey, this one's been sitting on the shelf and never got any traction. Jazz it up. Do something. Take the melody and do something with it. And we have probably... we have 6 to 8 signed already. One was just in Chicago Fire a month ago.
Yeah.
And that was just a recent signing, and it's already got a placement. So yeah, a lot of my co-writers say, hey, jazz it up, do something with this song. And a lot of times, because I'm also, I never really considered myself a lyricist, but I write all the lyrics, so I guess I'm a lyricist too.
Wow. How did you develop that aspect of what you're doing?
I didn't. I hear melodies and words just happen. And then from there, I'll sit and do the work. Great, I have plane rides all the time.
Right.
I'm sitting there, right? I have the little iPhone thing there going with the melody that's going, and then I'll sit there and write lyrics for 3-4 hours on a flight.
I know from my own travel experience, I used to travel a lot more. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I had 2 daughters from my first marriage that lived in New York. And I kept an apartment in New York City. We'd go back every other weekend, and birthdays and dance recitals, all that stuff. Got to the point where I was like elite for life on Continental, which then became United. And I'm guessing that you get upgraded because you fly so much.
I'm an executive pro.
Yeah, wow. So, okay, so you don't see Coach very often.
I missed executive by 5 flights last year.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So you know what you do at the end of the year? You fly to London and back just to get the extra miles. Yeah. That's what I did one year. I literally flew to London, had one meeting, and flew home the next day so I could get over the line. But in any case, the reason I bring this up is when you're sitting there on a plane doing work, and you're highly focused, inevitably the person next to you will get a drink and put it on their tray table, and you sit there the whole time thinking, that idiot's going to knock this over, it's going to land on my laptop, and it's hard to do the work, right?
Yeah. Or you open up your laptop and the person in front of you puts their seat back, and your computer's bending in half.
My last laptop, the screen and the hinge got ruined from some Bobo in front of me, because it's not good enough to just merely lean your seat back. You have to throw it back. Because look at me. I've got a button that lets me tilt my seat, and I'm going to use it. I think the AC might have clicked off again. Can you check it, please?
Getting hot?
Yeah. Well, I mean, not hot, but warmish. I got a new thermostat from the building, and it sucks. Thank you. Okay, so let's listen to another one. What's the other one that you want to play?
I think the next one is Play That Song Again. It was from the rally. Became friends with Dean right out of the first rally.
And he's so hard to become friends with.
I know. We're
kidding. Dean's a great guy.
Yeah, and so we were talking, and he says, hey, he goes, because he heard some of my Sinatra stuff.
Yeah.
And he says, I got a couple tunes. Would you want to co-write them with me? And he already had a piano score.
Yeah.
And he sings great too. I don't know why he didn't just sing.
Yeah.
You got a great voice, Dean. And so we sent them over, and this one here, it was perfect because at the time my main publisher had sent me a request saying, hey, can you do more Sinatra with strings off that Sinatra and Strings album? And I said, boy, this song would be perfect. So I did it kind of, I'm kidding myself as a Don Costa Nelson, but how do I
in the style of
yeah. But I studied what he does, like what Don Costa does on Misty, on the second verse, how the trombones just kind of rise up in there, and so I try to do those kind of things, and that's the stuff I listen for, is how did the composer or the arranger of all this jazz that I listen to, how are they doing it?
Are you counting the days till you retire
Yes.
and can do music full time?
Yes, and that's
I can see your passion. I mean, it's just like oozing out of your pores, and I'm just
it's going to happen
so happy that you've
next
learned
year
all
or
this
two.
stuff.
Next year or two, everything's in place. Composers, musicians. I'm a big goals guy.
Yeah.
To-do lists and everything. Basically debt free. Paid off all that stuff. It's amazing when you get rid of credit cards, how much cash suddenly goes into your bank account. You paid off that. I know my expenses to the penny. I know how much Social Security is going to do. I know how much and then I've been banking money aside from all of what Michelle and I do as a family, just for the day when I do retire. That and as the BMI is growing and the sync fees, I still have a couple years' salary banked away there. That there'll be no pinch. And everything, so everything's a plan.
So you totally get it.
I run it as it is a business, and I run my composing as a business, and with goals and the whole bit. Yeah.
I won't mention him by name, but a couple of years ago at the Road Rally, I had a mutual friend of ours who's a taxi member from Nashville that's also a certified financial planner, and we had to be very careful because those guys have very strict rules that they have to follow about what they can say, can't make anything, promises, kind of stuff. But he and I did a presentation and projected that if you started out at 35 years old and made just a little bit of money, like $1,000 or something the first year, and a little bit of money second year, and the first 5 years you're kind of inching up, then it picks up a little bit and a little bit more, and by the end of 30 years, by the time that this imaginary person was 65 years old, they would be earning 100, and I'm pretty sure, I could be misquoting, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, that it was I want to say 112 or 118K a year, and that was net after taxes, I believe, and figuring spending 15% of the money, because you've got another income in the years leading up to that being your day job. But then you hit retirement age, and you've now got like $1.3 million in the bank, and at 65 you're retired. You've got all this experience, all these connections with these publishers, and now you can really hit your stride. So that's got to be exciting as hell for you.
Well, that's what I, like tomorrow I'm doing for the day gig. But I do a little segment in there where I talk about goals. And I say, when I hit 65, I don't want to retire and say, I'm a full-time composer now. And wait, because by the time you write it, by the time you mix it, by the time you get it to a publisher, by the time they listen to it, by the time they sign it, by the time it gets into the catalog, by the time it gets pitched, by the time it gets placed, years go by. And you still haven't made a penny. And then by the time you wait for them 6 months to a year to get your sync fee, if there's a sync fee, and then you got to wait another 6 months a year for your pro to pay you. Before you make money, you'll be in a retirement home. So
you can imagine how it infuriates me when I see people go online and say, I belonged to Taxi for a year and I didn't even make my membership fee back. Well, you didn't give it a chance.
Well, my Donna Karan made many. I
gotta tell you, let's share this. He, in probably your third or fourth year at Taxi.
Third year. It was at the end of 2010.
You had a. Can we play that piece, or is it?
No, it's signed in many places.
Okay. I mean, we have a problem. YouTube, we'll get dinged.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, but all right. They've muted some episodes, but that was more in the past. All right, so go ahead and play that piece, because this ended up the sync fee in this was
pull up pure. Oh, it's.
Is it the Pride?
No, it's not on this list. It's not on this list.
Okay.
It's under YouTube. If you can get the music.
Pure DKNY.
Pure DKNY.
Yeah, I can find it.
Yeah, it's the one with Angela Lindval's face there.
So, if I remember, and this was a long time ago, it was like a $30,000 sync fee for that?
Half of that, yeah.
Your half?
No.
The whole thing. And then, a year later, they came back and said, we want to license it again.
And then after the year went up, of course, this is marketing. They've been playing it on their website.
Right.
And then after the contract period for a year was up, it kept playing. And I called the publisher before this and said, are they going to renew for another season? They said, no, it's dead, it's over. But it kept playing on the webpage. So I called the publisher and said, hey, do you know it's still playing? She goes, really? She goes, I'll get back to you. And then about a day later, I got an email and said, hey, thanks for your diligence. We got another $5,000.
Nice.
Just to play on the internet. It's like, yes, that works.
Wow.
And it's a solo piano piece that I wrote. Well, now it's...
You wrote it in college, right?
Wrote it in college 40 years ago, thinking and it was on my old Fender Rhodes, the '88 suitcase.
Yeah.
And I used to put the reverb all the way up, so it had this echo. And actually, the left hand sounded like a horse going down cobblestone. The boom boom da boom. It was kind of neat, and I just, everyone always loved that song. And that's kind of what got me towards the TV film too, is I'd write some music, put on a little cassette, and I'd play it for somebody. And instead of someone just saying, oh, I like it, it's bad or it's good,
Right.
they would start describing scenes. Oh, I could see the sun, a glass of wine, the terrace, or dancing. And it wasn't just one person, that was everyone that I ever played music for. They always told me what was in their head when they played the music.
We play that game on Taxi TV. It's like name the scene.
Yeah.
You know? And it's amazing how many great pieces of music you can't name a scene for. You can't come up with the emotion it represents. And you have to think like that. As a composer.
Yeah.
It's better to have the emotion and the mood and the scene visible in your mind's eye that's far more important than, wow, what a brilliant composer.
Yeah.
Did you find
I
it?
think I found it. What is it? What does it look like?
Can you hold it up? Hold the laptop up and turn it around.
That's it. And we just got residuals from Russia about a year ago on this from the commercials.
Pure DKNY for her. The new scent that takes small steps to make a difference.
The small steps was Donna Karan donated all the profits from the perfume back to I forget it was Kenya or one of the African nations where the women are under a lot of suffrage, so they can build their own community banks and lend money so they can grow more crops.
Right.
And it was through CARE.
Wow.
And they did that with the second commercial too, Verbena. They did the same thing.
Nice.
So it was all pretty cool. Yeah.
You
It's funny. I wrote, I never submitted this to anything. There was a taxi listing that was calling for minimalistic piano pieces.
Okay.
And I did up this thing where I did it with a toy piano. I did it with a ridiculous piano. I had all these different sounds, and they all got rejected. And at the end, I said, just let me play it. And I played it. And it is rubato. Because it does. As a matter of fact, some of the people on the forum are like, hey, what happened to your time signature here? It's not in time. And I remember saying, I tried to quantize it. I tried to put it in, but it just doesn't feel right. I have to keep it loose.
Yeah.
And then, an interesting story was it got forwarded to a UK publisher. And that was like my second or third deal from a taxi listing.
Yeah.
And they sent over the paperwork, and then they made a big push. It was non-exclusive, and they made this huge pitch in the email to go exclusive. More European sub-publishing, and we'll work harder for it and all this. But the song really had a place in my heart, and normally it's just notes on a page to me. But this song meant a lot because it meant a lot to me. And I said, no, I'm going to go non-exclusive. And I had gone to their page earlier, and because when I got forwarded, before the deal came over, and I was listening to what they have, and I was listening to their piano stuff, and I was like, oh my God, they'll never take my piece. The stuff they have on their site is just unbelievable.
But they could feel the emotion in this.
And
you can literally feel the white linen curtains blowing as you listen
thank
to
you.
this.
And then I got the contract, and I said, I'm going to keep it there. And then I said to myself, that was a pretty high bar listing that they accepted. Then what if this other publisher, if they'll take it? And so I sent it over to there. They signed it and got it in their calendar before the UK even got the paperwork.
And the second publisher was
the one who got the placement. So I'm so glad I didn't, suck up and my first deal. Let me send it exclusive. I'm glad I kept it non-exclusive. So yeah, the song you want to play is "Play That Song Again." And this is a co-write from Dean. He sent it over, and then I just ordered Dean Corpain, yes.
in the chat room, I believe.
Yeah.
Hey, there's Ann House. Hi, Ann.
Play that song again, sing it one more time, let the music flow like the sweetest wine. Spin
write the
me
lyric?
round the room.
Dean wrote most of them,
With
and I added a
those
few words here. Is that
tender
Dean
eyes.
singing? No, that's Dan Borelli. That's a
Take
local guy.
me to the moon, high above the skies. Underneath a symphony of stars, where love's melody is ours. Play that song again.
There's the trombones rising
Let
up.
me hear the tune.
This is great.
Don't care where or when.
And this was just in the Hallmark movie. The love scene at the end when they dance together.
We don't need a band when we're hand in hand. Just you and me. And when each moment ends, we'll just play that song again.
There's not a library alive that wouldn't give up a body part to have that track in their catalog. And I mean a key body part. Beautifully crafted.
Underneath a symphony of stars, where love's melody is ours. Play that song again, never let it stop. You're all I care about, morning, noon, and night. Whisper in my ear those words I want to hear, that you
East
love
West.
me.
Paul.
And when each moment ends, we'll just play that song again. Oh, play that song again.
Okay, to answer a few questions that flew by, that's not Dean singing. Dean wishes that was him singing. And Dean's a great singer, but that dude, he's better than the Sinatra guy I was turning to.
Okay.
Frank is rolling over in his grave right now. That guy's really good. Bob was just saying that the strings and horns that Polly was asking about were East-West.
East-West, yeah.
Really, really beautifully crafted.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just for those of you who are new to Taxi or new to Taxi TV, that's the high water mark right there. That's the epitome of something that's so beautifully crafted that any library would give up a body part to have it in there. It's just really, really great work. Yeah. Very proud of you. So is your wife now supportive? I mean, she might have been supportive all along, but this is an issue. Yeah. For a lot of our, oh man, I forgot to hold up my signs today. Anyway, I hear this from a fair number of our members. I've heard it over the years that the wives, the friends, the children think that this is some sort of folly. Like, oh, come on, you're never going to get anything in a TV show.
Biggest supporter.
She's now got to be like just gaga over this.
Yes, she's from the get-go, she's just an incredible person, but she has always been very supportive. And, I say, hey, I'm going to go spend, a couple $1,000 on this. Okay. You need it.
And then you go out and sell a couple of the horses and go buy what you
More manure. Your
Michelle,
flowers will
look,
grow.
2 of the horses are gone.
Don't worry about it. But look at this mic I got.
Let's see. Can you say generally that your solo pieces or ensemble pieces is one type been more successful in getting placements than the
It's
other?
right down the middle.
Okay.
It's right down the middle. And a lot of my vocals. One thing that I'd like to share, if you don't mind, like not for this tune, but like for Dark Moon Over Me, with all Dan Borelli singing, Tell Me, really nice songs. I do the vocal. I have the vocals track, and then like you hit the mute button for my underscore.
Right.
And then a lot of times I'll take from there, and I'll either do a sax or I'll bring a soloist in and cut a whole new song, instrumental version of that. So, not just one song. Now I got the underscore,
right,
and now I have an instrumental track, because I'm not doing cues. I'm not doing a little 30-second thing where you can churn out. Songs take a while.
So you want to create every possible path to monetization that you can by coming up with all those derivatives.
Well, a perfect example is one of the songs on there is called Praio Divino. It's a bossa nova. I love writing bossa nova.
Okay.
And I have that with Nita Hope, who was a taxi driver.
I just actually shot her a little message on LinkedIn like 2 days ago. She was surprised I remembered her. Of course I remember.
Oh, yeah.
I love her.
I have her sing it in English.
Yeah.
I have her singing it in Portuguese.
I didn't know she spoke Portuguese.
She didn't, but I had the person who recut it, who sings it in Portuguese, who's Portuguese. So we did that. Then I have Dan Borelli singing it in English. Okay. So on that one track, I have 2 English versions, a male and a female. I have 2 Portuguese versions, and then I have an instrumental with just piano, kind of a elevator, kind of easy listening there. So that one song generated five songs that could be pitched in many different ways.
And do you generally take all 5 versions, and so if you do a deal with Library A, they get all 5 derivatives,
I pitch
and
them all,
Library B gets all 5 derivatives?
Yeah, because they like to put alternate takes on there. Here's the thing, and then here's the alternates. A lot of the vocals, I always try to get a really sweet. Just did that. I'm developing a young artist named Morgan Sparks. She goes under the name Cherry, and 21 years old. I was basically out of high school and just doing some community college stuff. And her brother rides at the barn, takes lessons. And her mother and I became friends. She goes, "Oh, my daughter, sang in the jazz band and all this." And of course, you're like, "Yeah, okay, And so I found a few things on YouTube. And she doesn't have a bad voice, not bad. And she goes, for her birthday, she goes, "Would you take her into the studio and just let her cut a track?" That's my birthday present to her. So Morgan and the mother came up to the studio and we talked, and I told them what I was doing and showed them I used to print out the taxi forwards and frame them, and now I've replaced all of them with placements.
Nice.
I'm out of walls now, which is good. Thank you. So I started doing this, and so I started listening to her, and boy, what a nice voice. And I said, your mom can pay me lots of money to record you and make a little CD, or I think you have a lot of talent. Let's develop you as an artist. That's her dream, to be an artist.
How old is she?
21.
So
and she, she loves Halsey and Lord, and that's her style and all that stuff. But I've heard her sing jazz, God Bless the Child. I was like, whoa.
Wow.
Whoa. And so she came and said, let's co-write together. I'm going to make you a writer. I set her up at BMI, set her up with the libraries I'm in. And we have probably 7 songs already signed, pitched already. We did a whole Christmas album, and of all public domain stuff. And I mean,
all because they have horses at your stable.
Yeah, because her brother rides at our stable, and we just started talking, and I just saw some talent and said, we got to do something. And then now, besides, we just cut and got signed an original Christmas thing that I wrote. Christmas Eve and Where Are You, basically. It's a heartbreak song, and it's really pretty, and she just knocked it out of the park. And then I cut a big tenor sax version of that. Both got signed.
It's so funny that you're doing all this in Charlottesville.
You could be doing it anywhere as long as
I know, but see, people don't realize that. One of the most common things I hear is, "Oh, where I live."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I have when Nita was singing for me, she's in Mississippi. Love the internet. Just send over that track. She would record it with her ribbon bluebell, baby bell, or whatever it's called.
Baby blue.
That's the one, yeah.
From Blue Microphones.
And she'd send it over. I said, well, okay, but do this, and that, and send it over, and I'd mix it in. We're done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's see how much time. Oh, we're getting close. 8 minutes left. Let's open it up to some Q&A from the audience. I'll ask you one more thing while their stuff is coming in. Bria's on top of her game today. Thank you.
Excellent.
She's already got some. Peter Rahill asks, what's the longest duration of a piece that's been used in a placement?
3, I think as close as I can remember, is about 3 minutes, 35 seconds.
That's pretty long.
And that was on Showtime. That was Californication. That was a long scene. And it's one of those scenes, like I like to do a lot with kids in high school and stuff and volunteer. And I want to make a reel and bring it in, but I can't because every other word is an F-bomb.
Right.
and so you wouldn't hear anything. But yeah, about 3 minutes, 36 seconds.
L. Harrison asks, CPU saving multi-timbral technique when using 4/5 strings instead of just separate tracks for each ? So he wants clarification about what that means.
Yeah, basically, if you're like in East-West, or in even just about all the sample packages, you can do multi-timbral. In other words, you're opening up one processor. Instead of opening up East-West 5 times, you're opening up one, and then you're assigning tracks to that processor and on the side, and it'll play them all through that one, as I understand it.
Yeah.
And it just saves you CPUs.
And the sound quality is just as good?
Oh, it's the same as opening up 5.
And is there any different? I know that sometimes you have to open up another, for instance, if you had stuff that was octaves apart and something just wouldn't sound good, like playing a low C, taking a low C sample and playing a high C note, that sounds bad, but this is
that's totally different.
It's not an issue. Okay.
No, because in East-West you have the instrument's range, and it doesn't go beyond that. What we're talking about
so
here
you couldn't do that if you wanted to.
If I opened up East-West,
yeah,
and I said, okay, solo cello for track 1,
yeah,
East-West opens up, and all that baggage comes with East-West.
Got it.
And then if I say, I want a viola, let me open up East-West again, all that baggage comes up. And then each one is using the processing, the CPUs, to do that. When you do multi-timbral, you're opening up one, and then you're just listening them on the side, and it does it all through one opening. And you're very rarely redline.
That's my next question. Was how much of that can you get away with before you max it out?
You can go up to like 16 tracks doing
okay.
that. The only thing that you really go to YouTube, because there's a lot of tutorials on that, is the only catchy thing about it is if you just open them all up, they're all under one master. So from each one in your DAW on your mixer, now you're going to assign that to another track, and you assign that to another track, so you can, and then you open up, you hit the read, and you open up a volume for that, so you can do each individual track. Otherwise, all of them will go up and down at the same time, and it's very frustrating. But yeah, all these things you learn, it's just like your head wants to explode.
I'm so impressed that you've learned all this. I can't pronounce his name, but it's Mladn Domic. So Mladen Domic asks, Bob, do you write music based on taxi listings, or do you write whatever comes to you?
A lot of my songs, believe it or not, is when East-West is loading. My piano sits here, my DAW is over here.
Yeah.
So while it's doing this thing and it takes 3-4 minutes to open up, I'll a lot of times just be noodling with I've become very proficient left-handed.
Yeah.
I can ad-lib left-handed now. While I'm looking over here, the piano players, that's unheard of. It's always block chords. My bass lines are what my bass player comes in, and I show him the sheet, and he goes, I'll play that. No. You're the bass player. I love what you write. So he plays my lines. I'm like, okay, whatever. But what was the question?
Do you create based on listings? Do you write at targets, or do you just create and hope you find a home?
A lot of times I'll hit a chord and like, ooh, I like that, and I'll do something. So after that loads, I'll shut it. I'll open up a track, just boom, close it, so now I have it.
Right.
And then I'll come back to it. But doing
How
that.
about genres? Are you also, have you expanded your horizons with writing different genres that
Yes.
you didn't used to do? I'm assuming that you were primarily a
The-
jazz guy all these years.
Jazz, light new age, solo piano, light
Do
little
you ever
classical
do
stuff.
that's more electronic based, like a drone, like a very simple?
I haven't done drone yet, but I have been with this young artist,
Yeah.
Cherry. I've been doing this style of Lord and Halsey, and which is because she comes into the session. We usually do about a 3-4 hour session. We used to do once a week, but then my travel schedule got crazy again. But she'd come in, and the first thing she does is, I have a playlist for you. And then she'll pull up, Dua Lipa and all these artists I've never even heard of before, and we'll go through and we'll listen, and I see what they're doing here. We got the big bass down here, and it's droning here, and we have a pad over here, and this is how they're separating it. And stylistically, I'm always A B A B A B, the jazz style, and it's like words, big chorus, words, but and to a jazz guy, that's what it sounds like, But I'm learning from her, and she's teaching me this style, and then and she has a book that she just writes obscure things in, and then we take all these lyrics and we say, okay, yeah, here's what we're doing. And I just she sent me like 25 different lines, and there were like 3 or 4 different subjects in there, so I arranged them and by subject matter.
Did you cut them up and throw them on a refrigerator like those?
Almost.
those
I'm moving
refrigerator
things
magnets?
around here. Hey, I have a verse now. Look at that. From thing that she looks at it, oh wow, that wasn't. Yeah, that works. And she's a proficient musician. I mean, she plays trumpet, she plays viola, she
Wow.
Yeah, she was doing a community class, and she taking keyboarding. And she goes, oh, we have a few minutes of time. I have an assignment. Can I record here? I say, yeah. And all of a sudden, she's playing this song. I'm like, you've never played piano before. She goes, yeah, but she just. I mean, that's how it comes to a great ear. And so now she's helping me to get onto the more adult contemporary side, the more whatever genre that is. Yeah, but I do write for listings. If a listing comes up, of course we don't get as many jazz listings as the other ones. But when something comes up, if I don't have something that's non-exclusive that I can throw at it, and if I have the time, I'll sit down and write something for that listing. And then, when the feedback comes back, whether it's good or bad, and where do I make the adjustments and everything. The biggest tip I can give is actually from Stephen King's book on writing.
Okay.
I tell this to all the musicians and composers that I'm working with. He has a line in there, I'm going to probably paraphrase it, but he says, don't be afraid to kill your darlings. Mm-hmm. And hitting the mute button and pulling back. Roland Murphy just had a big thing on Facebook. He says, adding less makes more. Yeah,
absolutely.
And Dean hit me with that once. I had this tune, and I had the most gorgeous piano intro. It was probably the best piano I ever played. And then the song started, and I sent it to Dan. Hey, would you give me your ears? And he just wrote back and said, it's nice. He goes, but is a music supervisor or a library going to wait 30 seconds for the song to start? No. And I had to sit there, and I was like, yeah, gotta go. I had to kill my darling. I had to take it out. And the song was like 10 times better because of...
I always say, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
It's so
Pulling out is so important.
How we do. Oh, it's 5:30. Man, oh man.
That flew.
It absolutely flew by. Man, I am so incredibly grateful that you let me know that you were going to be here, and I'm so glad
pleasure.
you were able
Thanks
to join
for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Geez. How often do you make it to LA? Do you ever come back for anything? I would love to have you back on the show.
Oh, absolutely.
This was really
absolutely
awesome.
I'd love to come back.
And congratulations on all your success.
Thank you.
I always knew that you were a hardworking guy, but now I believe even more than I did before that you richly deserve the success. I'm exceptionally proud.
Thank you.
Grateful to have you as a member, and I will see you in November at the rally.
Absolutely.
Oh, one last question. Were you in the room last year when I had the young lady, Laurel Ostrander, on stage, the video editor, showing how she used music in reality shows?
No, I wasn't. I think I had my breakout class then.
I am starting the rally with her this year.
Oh, really?
Because I want that ballroom packed. It was maybe the single best thing we've ever had on the stage at a road rally, and the people that were in the room for it, like, blown away. So this year's road rally, which is November 1st through the 4th. I'm starting out the road rally with
Nice.
that amazing thing. So for those of you who've never been to one, make sure you come to this
Absolutely.
one. And we will see you guys on Monday for that Taxi TV. Thank you all for showing up on a Wednesday. Thank you, Bob.
My pleasure. Thank you, man.
Bye, you guys.
Take care now.
See you next time on another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Bye-bye.